So, if the average man runs a race in, well, like 5.5 minutes,
Right.
but his partner takes over 13 minutes just to reach the exact same finish line, I mean, someone is obviously always getting left behind.
Yeah, constantly.
Right. And usually when we talk about reaching a physical goal or, a peak experience, there's this underlying assumption that faster is just better.
It's a very linear mindset.
Exactly. You line up at the blocks, the starting gun goes off, and you're just aggressively charging toward the end, trying to cross it as quickly and efficiently as humanly possible.
Because the destination is basically the entire point of the exercise for most people.
Hmm.
And the journey is just, I don't know, the necessary friction you have to push through to get there.
Right. But today, we're taking a deep dive into a practice that completely hacks human biology to basically flip that script.
It really does.
We're exploring the idea that the most intense experience you can possibly have actually requires you to sprint right up to the finish line and then just abruptly slam on the brakes.
Yeah, and then do it again.
And again, exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating article. It's titled The Edge of Everything, written by an author who goes by Mr. Non-Monogamy, MSW.
And just to give you some context on our source today, he brings over 20 years of experience in ethical non-monogamy to this.
Which is a lot of lived experience.
That's like, plus over a decade of relationship coaching, and crucially, a background in cognitive behavioral therapy.
So we aren't just looking at this as like a quick bedroom tip. We're looking at it through a highly analytical psychological lens.
Exactly. And to lay the groundwork, the practice we're analyzing today is commonly known as edging.
Though you might also hear it referred to as orgasm control or surfing or the stop-start technique.
Right. And at a purely mechanical level, edging is the deliberate practice of bringing yourself or your partner right to the absolute brink of climax and then intentionally pulling back before it happens.
You just stop.
You stop, you let the arousal subside, and then you begin the buildup all over again.
Now, if you're listening to this right now thinking, why would I actively choose to frustrate myself when the whole point is to finish?
Which is a totally fair question.
Yeah, you're not alone. It sounds completely counterintuitive. And what's wild is that this didn't start as some, new age internet trend on TikTok or something. The origins are deeply clinical.
Very clinical. Edging was actually formally described way back in a 1956 issue of the Journal of Sexual Medicine.
1956?
Yeah, 1956. At the time, it was called the Siemens technique, named after the urologist who developed it.
Wait, okay, let's unpack this for a second, because that is a massive leap. If this was invented in 1956 purely to treat premature ejaculation.
Which it was. It was a strict treatment protocol.
Right, so I don't see how it leaps from a strict medical protocol to a mainstream practice for intentional pleasure. I mean, medical treatments usually numb things down or just fix a deficit, right? They don't typically turn into recreational superpowers. What am I missing here?
Well, it's a completely fair question.
Yeah.
And the author actually points out they never personally struggled with premature ejaculation either.
Okay.
The leap happened because of what the Siemens technique actually required patients to do physically.
Which was what, exactly?
So Dr. Siemens instructed patients to stimulate themselves to the absolute edge of inevitability, completely stop all physical contact till the urge entirely disappeared, and then repeat that process multiple times before finally finishing.
So it was literally just a mechanical exercise to build tolerance.
Exactly. But patients and their partners quickly realized there was this massive side effect.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah. Yes, the technique delayed the climax, which solved the clinical issue. But the exact same biological mechanism that delayed the climax also radically enhanced the eventual sensation.
Okay, so if this wasn't originally meant for pleasure, the medical side effect must be triggering something entirely different in the nervous system.
What's fascinating here is the actual biology of it. To understand the how, we really have to look at vasocongestion.
Vasocongestion. Break that down for me.
So when you experience physical arousal, blood flows into the pelvic and genital areas much faster than it flows out.
Right, which causes the swelling.
Exactly. This is what causes tissues to swell. And normally this process lasts a few minutes, hits a peak, and then the blood rapidly disperses.
But with edging.
With edging, you are artificially trapping the body in that state of vasocongestion for an extended period of time.
It's almost like leaving a speaker amplifier turned up to 9 for an hour without actually playing any music.
That is a perfect analogy.
The electrical current is just sitting there humming. The system is so highly charged that when the sound finally hits, it completely blows the doors off.
That's exactly what's happening to your nerve endings. The sustained blood volume physically presses against the nerve pathways in the pelvic region.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that lowers their threshold for stimulation. They become incredibly hypersensitive.
So it's a physical structural change in the moment.
According to the International Society for Sexual Medicine, or the ISSM, this deliberate prolongation of blood flow significantly increases the intensity of the orgasm.
Because you've kept the body's systems in a heightened state of readiness for so long.
Right, so the eventual physiological release just has to be more forceful.
The source notes that for men who practice this over a few days, the payoff is noticeably amplified. But the implications of this go way beyond just a more intense solo experience.
Oh, definitely.
Because if you can manually control how long this process takes, you can solve one of the biggest structural problems in heteronormative relationships. We really have to talk about the synchronization gap.
The timing gap. Yeah, this is where the biological mechanics directly intersect with relational dynamics.
Our sources cite this study from the Journal of Sexual Medicine that measured the average time it takes for men to reach climax during penetrative sex.
And the number is surprisingly low.
It's just 5.4 minutes, 5.5 minutes on average.
Yeah.
But for women, the average time to reach orgasm is 13 minutes and 25 seconds.
It's nearly 3 times longer.
Right. We are biologically out of sync by design. And edging acts as, like, the software patch for a hardware problem.
That's exactly what it is.
Because if one partner is physiologically programmed to finish in 5 minutes and the other requires over 13 minutes, somebody is consistently being left unfulfilled unless there's an intentional intervention.
And that's where the Siemens technique, or edging, bridges that gap.
Hmm.
By utilizing those stop, start, and squeeze techniques, you literally retrain the body's stamina.
The author of the article actually shares a personal anecdote that perfectly illustrates this, right?
Yeah, he does. He says after practicing edging during solo sessions for about 3 years, he went from that standard 5-minute window to being able to last over an hour and 15 minutes during partnered sex.
Wait, from 5.4 minutes to over 75 minutes.
Yeah.
That completely obliterates the timing disparity.
It really does.
But it's crucial to point out this isn't just a stamina tool for men. The benefits for women are equally profound.
Absolutely.
The source cites data from OMG West, which is this massive research platform focused entirely on female pleasure. Their findings show that 66% of women who practice edging experience orgasms that are significantly longer in duration and much more intense.
So when both partners utilize this, they aren't just matching up their timelines so they can finish simultaneously.
Right.
They're fundamentally elevated the physiological baseline for both of them.
It's literal biohacking. But, okay, if the body is physically primed, how does the brain handle being stuck in that holding pattern?
That's the real challenge.
Because the author's background is in cognitive behavioral therapy, right? And he makes it very clear that physical stamina is really only half the story here.
Right. The neurological rewiring is where this practice moves from just a physical trick to something truly transformative.
How so?
From a cognitive behavioral perspective, edging is this intense mental exercise in developing what's called interoceptive awareness.
Interoceptive awareness. Okay, break down what that actually means in this context.
Sure. Interoceptive awareness is the brain's ability to actively notice, interpret, and respond to the internal signals of your own body.
Okay.
Let's look at how we usually experience physical arousal. Most people go into a sort of autopilot.
Yeah, you just kind of zone out.
Exactly. The parasympathetic nervous system starts to build up, the heart rate spikes, breathing shallows, and eventually the sympathetic nervous system takes over to trigger the climax. It's an automatic passive cascade. The brain just goes along for the ride.
It's like being a passenger in a runaway car with a brick on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
You're just bracing yourself until you hit the wall.
That is exactly what it feels like.
But edging changes the entire dynamic. Instead of just riding it out, you're learning to feel around in the dark, finding exactly where the gas pedal and the brake pedal are, and realizing you can actually steer the car.
You're transitioning from a passive passenger to an active driver.
Which takes a lot of mental focus.
A ton of focus.
Mm-hmm.
By repeatedly bringing yourself to the edge and stopping, you are forcing your brain out of autopilot. You're demanding that it pay hyper-focused attention to the micro-sensations in your body.
So you learn the exact physiological markers of being, say, 10% away from the peak or 5% away.
Exactly. And doing that requires you to totally hijack the brain's dopamine system.
Oh, because dopamine isn't just about experiencing pleasure, right? It's the chemical of anticipation. It's that reward-seeking drive.
Precisely. When you edge, you are spiking dopamine levels as you approach the peak. But by stopping, you suspend the brain in that state of high anticipation.
You're just leaving it hanging there.
Right. You are actively training your brain to sit in the tension of delayed gratification. And from a therapeutic standpoint, developing that deliberate self-regulation drastically reduces performance anxiety.
Because anxiety usually stems from the fear of losing control.
Always.
If you know exactly where the brakes are and you've tested them 100 times, you don't panic when the car speeds up.
Exactly. You build that confidence during solo practice, mapping out your own internal signals, and then you carry that profound self-knowledge into partnered activities.
You aren't guessing anymore.
No, you know your own physical landscape intimately.
So once you have that level of interoceptive awareness, once you've really mapped out the brakes and the gas, you gain the ability to hand those controls over to someone else.
Which is a huge shift.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. The source explores how this exact dynamic is being utilized by couples, particularly long-distance and non-monogamous couples, to maintain intense intimacy across massive geographic divides.
This is where the intersection of psychology, trust, and modern technology creates entirely new ways of connecting.
Because when physical proximity just isn't an option, psychological proximity becomes essential.
Exactly.
The author lays out 3 specific scenarios for how couples are pulling this off, and the mechanics of how they work psychologically are just wild.
They really are. Let's look at scenario 1.
Yeah, scenario 1 is the scheduled video session. Picture 2 partners living in entirely different cities.
Right.
They block out 45 minutes on a Tuesday night and get on a video call. Partner A engages in the physical act, while partner B simply watches and verbally guides them.
So partner B gives the commands, telling them to stop just before the peak, telling them to hold, take deep breaths, let the arousal subside, and then build it back up.
In that scenario, partner B holds all the authority. The cycle repeats multiple times, and partner B might finally grant permission for partner A to finish, or, and this is a crucial dynamic, they might deny that permission entirely.
Yeah, telling them they have to stop and wait until their next scheduled session.
The amount of trust that requires is just staggering. You are completely surrendering your physical release to someone on a screen.
It's a profound level of vulnerability.
But scenario 2 takes that concept and removes the real-time interaction entirely. This is asynchronous voice notes.
This one is fascinating.
It is. One partner records a voice memo saying something like, "Start now. Okay, slow down. Stop completely. I want you to wait exactly 2 minutes."
Right.
They send the audio file, and the other partner listens and follows the instructions later, completely alone. How does the brain process that? The author notes it feels like being guided by an absent hand.
It works because of how the brain uses predictive coding.
Predictive coding.
Yeah. When you hear your partner's voice, your brain immediately retrieves all the emotional and physical memories associated with them. The dopamine anticipation spikes just from the sound of their command.
Even though they aren't physically in the room.
Exactly. Even though they aren't present, your brain bridges the gap between the auditory stimulus and the physical sensation you're experiencing in real time.
That is incredible.
It's a profound form of delayed intimacy. You're experiencing a physical sensation in the present, but it's entirely dictated by your partner's voice from the past.
It's basically time-traveling intimacy. It genuinely hacks your perception of presence.
It really does.
And then we have the third scenario, which brings in the hardware. Scenario 3 is app-controlled toys combined with negotiated rules.
Right, the tech integration.
The source specifically mentions internet-connected smart devices like Lovense. Partner A wears the device, and partner B, who could literally be halfway across the world, controls the vibration, the intensity, and the rhythm through a smartphone app.
And they paired this technology with strict negotiated rules. For example, an agreement that partner A is forbidden from reaching orgasm without explicit permission via the app.
Wow.
While it functions as a sort of erotic game, at its core, it's a sustained point of connection. It's a psychological tether between 2 time zones.
Looking at all 3 of these, the video calls, the voice notes, the remote-controlled apps, why are these methods so much more powerful than, say, a standard phone call for these couples?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's because it fundamentally relies on a consensual power exchange.
Okay, unpack that.
When you engage in this, you are actively choosing to share a deeply vulnerable experience. You are pushing your body to the absolute precipice, stopping the pleasure right at the peak of frustration, and placing the navigation of that highly charged state entirely in your partner's hands.
It forces collaboration. You can't just passively experience it. You have to actively communicate.
Exactly. To do this successfully without being in the same room requires crystal clear communication, explicit consent, and immense emotional maturity. You're consciously choosing to sit with physical discomfort, trusting that your partner is holding your vulnerability with care.
The article includes a fantastic quote from Dr. Ian Kerner, who's a sex therapist and author of She Comes First.
Oh, I love this quote.
He says, edging helps increase sexual awareness and control. It allows people to stretch out pleasure and tune into their body in a new way.
That phrase, tune into their body in a new way, is the absolute crux of everything we're discussing today.
Yeah, whether you are using it to solve a biological timing gap in your own bedroom or using an app to maintain a connection with a partner across the globe.
The underlying mechanism is heightened awareness. You're refusing to go on autopilot.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Because there have to be guardrails here. We've talked about the clinical history, the vasocongestion, the dopamine loops, the high-tech applications. How does the author wrap this up? Because anything involving this level of psychological rewiring has to have potential pitfalls.
There are significant caveats, and the author is very explicit about them.
What's the main danger?
The entire goal of edging is to increase interoceptive awareness, build confidence, and deepen connection. However, if the practice starts to increase your baseline anxiety, or if it reinforces a fear of losing control, it has lost its purpose entirely.
So if you find yourself, I don't know, obsessing over a stopwatch to hit a certain time or treating it like a pass-fail exam, you've completely missed the point.
Precisely. If it turns intimacy into a rigid performance task, it becomes counterproductive.
That makes a lot of sense.
The author stresses that, like any practice, this needs to be approached with flexibility. And most importantly, the expectations need to be dictated strictly by you and your partner.
Not by what you read online.
Not by what you read online, not by the data we shared today, and certainly not by societal norms. The technique is supposed to serve you. You are not supposed to serve the technique.
It's an exploration, not a new standard you have to relentlessly measure yourself against.
Yeah, exactly. But it does raise a really fascinating question, though.
Oh.
One that steps outside the bedroom entirely.
This raises an important question, yeah.
We've just spent this deep dive exploring how intentionally sitting with physical discomfort, how deliberately delaying immediate gratification can completely rewire our neurobiology and radically heighten our relationships.
Why? It forces you out of autopilot.
So how might practicing that same deliberate delay transform the rest of our lives?
Oh, wow. That's a great point.
We live in a modern world that demands instant gratification for absolutely everything. From scrolling social media for quick dopamine hits, to next-day delivery, to binge-watching entire seasons of TV in one sitting.
We want it all right now.
Always. If we are constantly rushing to satisfy every urge the second it arises, what depth of experience are we missing out on by refusing to sit at the edge?
That completely recontextualizes it. It's not just a bedroom hack. It's a rebellion against the instant gratification loop we're all stuck in.
Exactly.
Because maybe the 100-meter sprint mentality is failing us everywhere. By rushing to cross every finish line as fast as possible, we're constantly bypassing the very friction that makes the reward worthwhile in the first place. You've got to learn to find the brake pedal.
You really do.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you something new to think about, and we encourage you to keep exploring. Until next time.